I always get excited when an app comes along that has the potential to make my Fujifilm RAW files even better. It's incredible when you think about it. You can actually go back and process your Fujifilm RAW files from 10 years ago, and they will look even better today than they ever did when you first processed them. But hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself here. This is probably a good time for the intro. Hi everyone, welcome to Pal to Tech. Today we're talking about DxO PureRAW 2 and its support for Fujifilm RAW files. We're also going to check out low light and high ISO performance. First, a disclaimer. Well, there's actually none. DxO has no idea I'm even making this video, and I am using that free 30-day fully functional trial version of the software. I am an active Capture One, Photoshop, and Lightroom Classic user. There's currently two DxO products of interest to Fujifilm users. The first is their full editing and digital asset management program called DxO Photo Lab 5. That one is more expensive and costs, at the time of this video, $219. The second one, and the one we're going to be taking a look at today, is DxO PureRAW 2. Now, PureRAW 2 is a standalone program where you can open it up and dump in a bunch of RAW files for processing. However, it also runs as a plugin inside of Lightroom. The cost for DxO PureRAW 2, as of the time of this video, is $129. I should mention that neither PhotoLab 5 nor PureRAW 2 require you to pay rental fees every single month forever and ever. You buy it once and you're good to go. Now, while this software works on both Windows and Mac, I will be testing on a Mac today, specifically the MacBook M1 Max chip with 64 gigs of RAM. This is one hell of a fast computer that I'm testing with, so keep that in mind. Once you download and install DxO PureRAW 2 and open it up, it will automatically install itself as a Lightroom plugin. If you're using Lightroom, then your workflow is going to be to apply the plugin to your photo, which then round trips the RAW files into PureRAW 2 and then back into Lightroom. So let's go in now and test this on a number of images, and I think you're going to be quite surprised at what I'm about to show you. Now, the very first thing to remember is that PureRAW 2 doesn't just process your RAW files, it also applies lens corrections. When you first go to process a RAW file, it will automatically determine the lens that you shot the photo with, and it'll ask you if you want to download the profile for that lens. You only need to do this once, and it takes just a few seconds. Two things to keep in mind about this. First, this is a brand new product, and not all lenses are supported with a DxO profile. I will leave a link to the full list of supported cameras and lenses in the description below this video. And the second thing to remember is that Lightroom itself has its own built-in profile correction functionality. If you apply DxO's lens correction, then the lens correction in Lightroom will automatically be disabled. If, however, your lens is not yet supported in PureRAW 2, then you can simply apply a correction in Lightroom. And a feature that I love is that you can use built-in integration in both Finder on the Mac and in Windows Explorer on Windows to quickly process a RAW file. There's two basic ways to use this in Lightroom. The first is to select an image, right-click, select Export, and choose the option that says Process with DxO PureRAW 2. The other option is to go to File, Plug in Extras, Process with DxO PureRAW 2. You can also batch process by multi-selecting various photos. So if I wanted to do this one, this one, this one, and this one, right-click, Export, boom, and those photos would all be processed. When you go to process a photo, you'll get a dialog box that opens up just like this. So the first thing that happened here is the program recognized that I shot this photo right here with the Fujifilm 50 to 140 millimeter lens on the X-T4. And it's asking me to download the lens correction profile for this lens. Remember, I only have to do that once. Once I do that, I get to the main window. This is the window you see once you've already downloaded the correction correction. You have three choices here: HQ, Prime, and DeepPRIME. You can eliminate Prime right off the bat, because if you try Prime and you click process, you're going to get this message that comes up: Fuji camera's RAW files are currently not supported by Prime RAW processing methods. So basically you're looking at either HQ or DeepPRIME. Now check this out right here. You can add global lens sharpening and lens distortion correction. You can turn those either on or off. I'm going to go ahead and turn off sharpening, because I prefer to sharpen in Lightroom and have a little bit more control over it. You can choose the format, either JPEG or DNG, and then it'll ask you for the destination folder. What's great is you can then incorporate your workflow into this. You can have a monitored folder, for example, when you choose custom folder, or you can have DxO create its own subfolder within your main folder of photos, whichever way works best for you. I'm gonna go ahead and choose the defaults here. That's it, and you just click process. Then you wait. Remember, I said this is one of the faster computers around. And if you're batch processing hundreds of RAW files and you select DeepPRIME, you're gonna be waiting a while. You know, start the processing and go have breakfast, lunch, and dinner before you come back. Now, once it's finished, you'll be taken right to the photo here. And have a look at this. The software has created its own collection as well as its own folder. So inside this collection right here is the photo that I just processed. However, if I go to show it in Finder, here it is right here, and you'll see that it's created its own folder inside the main folder of RAW files that I was working on in Lightroom. Now, something to keep in mind, you are going to get a larger file size for each processed DNG that comes back into Lightroom. For example, the one I just did right now ended up with a 93 megabyte file for this DNG. And you can see how it tacks on the name of how you processed it at the end of the file. That's very handy. So the original RAW files that came out of the X-T4 are about 26 or 27 megs. This was about 93 megs. So once you process it, what do you get? Let's take a look at that now. Photo on the left was the original RAW file. Photo on the right was done with the DeepPRIME using the DxO app. I'm gonna zoom in first to 100%. Now, I don't know if you can see this in a YouTube video box, but on my screen, the processed RAW with DeepPRIME does look a little bit sharper. If I go into the develop module, the first one, look at the sharpening settings. Here's the second one, look at the sharpening settings. They are pretty much the same, but I'm gonna zoom in now to 200%. Look at that. That is quite a difference. You can better see the ripples in the water. You see that right there? Look at the detail in the clouds and the trees far off. Even up close, I like the version with DxO better. And I don't know if it's because of the lens profile that's been applied or because of the raw processing. And frankly, I don't care. This just looks better to me. It's a nicer looking photo. Now let's look at skin tones in a portrait. Zooming in, there is no question about it. I am getting better detail with PureRAW 2 than I am with the regular Lightroom processed RAW file. Now, it's not as huge a difference as it was with nature and landscape. Let's look at one more nature shot. This was shot on an X-T4 using the 16 to 55mm lens. And I might add that I used a very high ISO of 12,800. Let's take a look. Okay, let's zoom in to 200%. Clearly, there's less noise on the RAW file that's processed with DeepPRIME. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but DeepPRIME uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to process your RAW files, which is why it takes longer and the file sizes are larger. But look at the low light, high ISO results. Let's zoom into 300%. There's no question about it. It is clear as day here. I hope you can see it in the YouTube window box. But Pal the Tech, you awesome, amazing YouTuber about to hit 100,000 subscribers, I hear you say. What about Adobe's built-in enhanced details feature? Let's take a look at that. Photo on the left was processed using the built-in Lightroom Adobe enhanced details feature. Photo on the right was run through DeepPRIME. And I'm seeing more detail in the DeepPRIME version. Look at this right here versus here. But here's something interesting. Look at the file size using Adobe's enhanced feature versus using the highest setting, DeepPRIME, in the DxO plugin. Adobe ratchets the file size up to almost 130 megs, whereas this portrait shot run through DeepPRIME maxes out at about 100 megs. But what about HQ versus DeepPRIME? Well, clearly DeepPRIME is better. There's no question about it. Across every photo I tested, DeepPRIME does a much better job at processing the raw files files, and DeepPRIME will give you better high ISO noise performance. And here's what's interesting. In a lot of the files that I process using this plugin, DeepPRIME, which is the high end of the processing, and HQ, which is the low end of the processing, take up about the same amount of file size. Check it out. You see that there? They're both 98 megs. There is a difference though in processing time. DeepPRIME takes up a lot more time to process in the first place. But like I said, you just set it to DeepPRIME and go have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, come back and everything's done. Now there was one thing that I noticed with regard to color shifting. I shot this photo with the Fujifilm GFX 100S. Now I don't know if you can see this on your device with YouTube, however on my screen, looking at this photo right here, the DeepPRIME version is giving a slightly more orange tint, slightly warmer, slightly more orange. It's just a hair, but it's definitely noticeable to my eyes. Again though, look at the better noise handling, even at ISO 200. But check out the corner right here. Definitely the warmer shot is on the right. Obviously you can adjust this using the sliders in Lightroom, which leads me nicely along to my next point. But what about past photos that you've worked on, where you've already applied exposure settings, white balance, etc.? What do you do about that? Well, the first thing for you to remember is that if you go into your catalog settings under metadata, if you already have automatically write changes into XMP, you've got nothing to worry about. DxO PureRAW 2 will read all of the settings that you've made to a photo and carry those over into the DNG that it outputs. So for example, this photo right here, suppose instead of Provia, I want to apply Acros. I'm going to punch auto a little bit, turn down our highlights, bump up our shadows, bring up the exposure a little bit, add a tone curve adjustment, add some texture and clarity. There. And I've added sharpening. I want you to remember that for a second. I've added sharpening. Now I'm going to right click it, select export, process with DxO PureRAW 2, and I'm going to actually turn on global lens sharpening. So it's going to be sharpening it here, and I've already sharpened it in Lightroom. What do you think is going to happen? Once it's done, have a look at this. There it is with every single adjustment that I made to it still intact. But what about that sharpening? Well, if you go down to detail, the sharpening was turned off. DxO said, wait a second, I'm sharpening it for you. If you're doing it already in Lightroom, that's going to be too much sharpening. So it turns off sharpening in Lightroom when you tell DxO to do the sharpening. If you tell DxO not to do the sharpening, then it will just keep the sharpening settings that you've used in Lightroom. Pretty clever, I think. And by the way, it's the same thing with lens corrections as well. Here it is at 300% with ISO 800. Which would you rather have? I am impressed. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I am using a very fast computer for these demos. Obviously, processing time is a factor on slower computers, and since time is money, this always needs to be factored into your workflow and deciding whether or not to use a specific tool. There's no doubt about it. DxO PureRAW 2 is a stellar program. A lot of attention was paid to detail and helping the user along the way. I have such a low tolerance for crap software, and DxO is pretty darn good at what it set out to do. That being said, because you need to factor in additional time, workflow issues, and your subjective opinion as to exactly how much better your RAW files could become using it, DxO is one of those programs where I strongly recommend that you first try out the free 30-day version. See how it performs. It costs nothing to do that for 30 days. I will have a link down below in the description of this video where you can download the free version. But before I go any further, we have a brand new Geariguana Hall of Fame member today, Jonathan Broom. Jonathan, thank you. Your support means so much to me and to this channel, keeping things going on here. I love this. We're going to get your name on the studio wall right now. And there it is forevermore, permanently on the studio wall, just off frame, off camera, right? But you know it's there anyway. And for the rest of you, if you have not checked out PALDETECH backstage, what are you waiting for? We have all kinds of fun here, beginning Monday morning with coffee time every week. We've got our very own private Discord community of photographers, filmmakers, Fujifilm camera users, and more. It is a lot of fun. Check it out. I will leave a link in the description below. And now, back to the show. By the way, let me know if you also want to see a full review of PhotoLab 5. Today, I just wanted to focus on DxO PureRAW 2. I do have a soft place in my heart for any company that takes Fujifilm photographers and their workflow needs seriously. And I think DxO is on the right track with this. More than other products that I've reviewed, I will be very interested to see where they go. Well, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you found the video helpful or at least entertaining. And if you did, be sure to give it the like and subscribe. I'm going to be signing off now, but have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you in a video next week. Take care.